Classic Joey Mac here for another edition of Marvel vs. Capcom 3 update. I believe this is 11. Haven't played the game in months, and here I am making my third update in a week. So it is fun talking about it again, at least in some capacity. I still have not put it on since early April, but regardless, there's some good conversation going on right now on a lot of boards and so on, a lot of trolling going on, a lot of crying, but that's to be expected when this game comes out, or when this game is talked about. So today I wanted to actually discuss the roster and a theory that I have on why people love or hate it. And this could go from probably any fighting game roster, I think, but I specifically obviously want to talk about Marvel vs. Capcom 3 and obviously Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. It's a theory, which I've put my own opinions on these videos, but this is kind of a theory that I have. It doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It doesn't even mean that I 100% believe in it, but I'm starting to convince myself of it. I'd like to kind of get to a point where we're understanding why this roster is causing the emotions it does, and always really has been. So I wanted to get into my theory that I believe that we judge a roster two times, obviously. Once, when the roster is actually revealed before us, when we see who's going to be in the game, before we know gameplay, before we know anything, we judge them then. And then we judge them, obviously, after we play the game. That's really the two times that we look at a roster. So, in my opinion, there are two types of characters that we like, in a game. The best character available and our favorite characters. Marvel vs. Capcom 2 was a small metaphor for this theory. They had a legitimate god tier in that game. Those characters, if you were to have them on your team, even one of them, let alone all three of them, your chances of winning against most other combinations of characters in that game were increased. If you had Storm, Magneto, Sentinel, or Cable on your team, you had a very good chance of winning. Unless I suppose you were going against the same exact characters, in which it would be all offset. But anyway. Now, I'm not going to get into whose skill is better versus who's not. I'm just saying that character gameplay-wise, since that's thrown out a lot, those characters were legitimately the best characters in that game. Now, that game also had many people's favorite characters at the time of 2000. And that's what we need to go back. We need to go back to 2000, where many people were, on these game boards were 4 to 6 years old. I was, hate admitting this, but 15. So I was definitely in the prime of my gaming, at that time. I'm 26 now. So, again, it had a lot of favorites. Street Fighter was hot. X-Men was hot. But it also had some other people that everyone liked, and so on. So, it had our favorites, but it also had the best characters, a legitimate tier that was so much better than others. So I just want to keep stressing that. So my team, for instance, was classic in that sense, where a lot of times I liked using Rogue, Gambit, and Captain America. By no means was that team the greatest team ever constructed. However, since they were some of my favorite characters, I could justify putting them together. And they weren't bad. I don't want to act like they were a crappy team. But they were... I had very good success with them, actually. But I'm just saying that I used them because they were my favorites. Now, occasionally I would switch Cap out for Cable, who I also like, actually, in the comics. But there's no denying that having Cable on the team certainly gave you a competitive advantage. That game was completely broken, unbalanced. I think we all know that. And I'm not trashing it in the sense because, remember, Marvel vs. Capcom 2... is what really made us wait the 10 years until Marvel vs. Capcom 3. But I'm just saying, for roster purposes, I want to get this beaten in everyone's head. That typically, a player will choose the best player available to increase their chances of winning, or they will play their favorite characters, and really, they'll play as their favorite because it'll justify the greatness because they are their favorite. Okay? If that makes any kind of sense whatsoever. Now, I want to go to Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Perhaps this is a reason why people are raging all the time. One, although there are probably characters that could be considered better than others, is there, especially after all the nerfs, balances, patches, and so on, are there so many characters that are so much better than everyone else? I don't know. Maybe someone out there smarter than me could make a case that certain characters are legitimate god tier characters that would destroy every other character. I'm not going to make that case. I don't think that's the case. I think Marvel vs. Capcom 3 is exceptionally balanced and will be even more balanced in Ultimate. But then there's not as many better characters. So for those that enjoy choosing the best characters available, or at least one of them to slip into their team to give them a competitive advantage, there's not as many of them. So all of a sudden, more people have to choose their favorites. Now we have a potential issue. Because Marvel vs. Capcom 3 has both done what every little fanboy wanted them to do, and also what every fanboy has not wanted them to do. They have added a good amount of cult favorites. And what is the problem with some cult favorites? There's not as many people that like them. And when you leave off certain characters that have huge, huge followings, all of a sudden there's an issue. Now, as many people have said to me before, well, it's the gameplay. I won't argue that gameplay is extremely, it's extremely important in these cases. However, didn't I not just say that you also judge a character twice? And so, now we see if there's not as many best characters, then people have to go to their favorites more. They have to go to that well more, because you can't get as much of a competitive advantage as you once could in Marvel vs. Capcom 2, for instance. All of a sudden, favorites have become more important in this roster. And so people are raging more when their favorites are not in. You see, a roster of favorites is only as good as how popular certain characters are. Mega Man, for instance, and I'll get to him later as well. But Mega Man, for instance, is such a hot lightning rod. So many people want him in. So many people want Venom in. The Gambits of the world. And so on and so on. They are not in. However, characters such as She-Hulk, Rocket Raccoon, Nova, and so on. And I'm not, not sitting here trashing them. Let's see, who else? Perhaps maybe even a Mike Hager. Characters that, and they are all a little different on how many people love or do not love them. But I'm just saying, like, Mike Hager is a very popular cult figure, is he not? Ghost Rider as well. I think more people will accept them because they have more of a cult following than, say, perhaps a Rocket Raccoon, for now. I'm just talking maybe people even my age as well. Or Nova. Nova's someone that I recognized. I actually think that he'll have fantastic gameplay. But is he somebody that I would consider on first glance? Don't know his gameplay, don't know anything. Is he somebody that deserves more of a shot? I'm just playing devil's advocate here. More than someone, say, like Venom, or Gambit, or Psylocke, or Cyclops, and so on and so on and so on. I'm just playing devil's advocate here. I'm just trying to get to the theory of, and this has never happened before, but would we have been more happy if Marvel and Capcom took their top 20 most popular characters of all time and just put them in? Getting a call. Well, I'm glad everyone has seen my ringtone. Or heard my ringtone. Jesus God. I don't know how you people put up with me. But anyway, it's just a theory that the roster is going to be more accepted if there's more people's favorites on there, and a character is favorited more when more people like them, obviously. Some people have made a good point that Mega Man in Marvel vs. Capcom 2 was kind of garbage. And yet, everyone still wanted to play as him that went to their favorites rather than the God tier characters. What I'm saying is that in a broken game like Marvel vs. Capcom 2, favorites and God tier characters both existed. And we had the option to choose any combination of that we wanted. That we could be our 3 favorite characters of all time, or in the game, or the 3 greatest characters in the game. You know, whatever we want to do. In this one, it's a little bit more difficult because there isn't as much of a competitive advantage character to character, and yet there isn't supposedly as many accepted favorite characters in this game. Now, for those that defend the Rocket Raccoons, and so on, God, the phone's blowing up. For those that defend those characters, the Rocket Raccoons, the Novas, and so on, it's their favorite character, obviously, or some people are just excited to have a change in this game. I've heard some people say that they think we should move on. Some of the older people, that we should move on and realize this isn't Marvel vs. Capcom 2. And by no means do I want Marvel vs. Capcom 2 in number 3. Why would I want that? I would just play number 2 if that was the case. But I'm saying, some people are accusing us, if we don't accept the roster, then we're just fanboys, blah, 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 blah. What I'm saying is that Rocket Raccoon, among others, Phoenix Wright. Let's go with Phoenix Wright. Phoenix Wright is a character that you either love or hate. Very, very popular. My wife plays Phoenix Wright. And I don't have a problem with Phoenix Wright games. My problem is I don't think he belongs in this game. However, for marketing, I understand why he's in the game. I understand completely why he's in this game. He is somebody that will become a favorite in the game because a lot of people like him. Some people don't. But I actually think I hear more people that like Phoenix Wright than don't like him. Whereas Rocket Raccoon, I don't think people either understand who he is, they don't understand why he's in the game. I'm just generalizing here. And then his cult following like him in the game. And maybe that cult following isn't as big as, say, Mega Man, and so more people are raging that Mega Man isn't in the game as opposed to Rocket Raccoon. Does that make sense? I mean, I'm hoping that you're following my logic here. I'm not sitting here saying that I'm believing all these things. I'm just simply giving you a theory that I tend to have. Perhaps, we all are attached to different favorites as well. However, I think there's more characters that are considered widely accepted favorites. Mega Man, Gambit, Venom, so on. They are people that are accepted, I think, by a larger group of people. And when you put in, I guess, other characters, what happens is they start to hate or dislike those characters, not because of who those characters are, but because their characters didn't get in. That's a theory that I have. That since Marvel vs. Capcom 3 is actually balanced, and actually, more balanced, and that there's less broken characters, and there's not much of a difference between character to character on how great they are, I then tend to think that people, they can't get a competitive advantage as much. Now, go online and you will see certain teams that continue to use the same characters, which means there are certain characters that are maybe slightly better, or maybe slightly better for online. I don't know. But I'm just saying that then people then tend to turn to their favorites. And when their favorites are not in, they tend to rage more, which is why we're hearing more, complaining, or criticism. And I'm somebody that I don't like to shut down people that criticize anything. I tend to think that we can talk about it and reason through it. I don't think there's a reason to shun it, which is why I don't like when people go on there and say, oh, Mega Man fans are just, bitching and crying, or, oh, Venom, fans, they don't, they'll never be happy, or so on and so on and so on. Sometimes the presentation is what's more annoying, which is why I ask you all, if you want to criticize the game, then do it reasonably, do it logically. Don't go onto a game board and say, blah, Mega Man's not in this game and I think he should be in the game because blah, 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 blah. Why don't you, like a big boy, and the problem is the argument, it's so old, just tell us, these are the reasons why I wish Mega Man was in the game. And I think if you did it that way, I think you'd have more people discussing it than simply calling you a fanboy or a troll or whatever. Think about it. Was Phoenix Wright much different a couple months ago before he was revealed and all the Phoenix Wright fans were coming out of the woodwork like cockroaches, no offense, and saying, I want Phoenix Wright in, blah, 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 blah. He got in. So they're not crying. I was talking to an individual on the page the other day, which is a fan page that I happen to be in. Not a fan page, it's actually a page that discusses a lot of video games, but it seems like it concentrates mostly on Marvel vs. Capcom 3 still. But anyway, I was talking to someone, and I was telling them, you realize if Mega Man was in the game, we wouldn't hear anything. They wouldn't care, necessarily, if he was the greatest or the worst character in the game, because I don't remember that argument from Marvel vs. Capcom 2. He was certainly not the greatest character in that game. I think people just like that comfort, of him being in there. So, it is what it is. I will say the Mega Man debate is slightly puzzling. I'd like to go into that just a little bit before I end this, though. I have been very consistent with my view that I believe Mega Man should probably be in, but it's not affecting me either way. It's very easy, it's almost like, to put this in terms of possibly politics or religion or whatever, the abortion debate, I know that sounds crazy, that I'm comparing Mega Man to abortion, but when you think about it, there's the people that are pro-choice, pro-life, and then all of a sudden you get some of those guys in the middle of the debate. They're like, well, I'm not having an abortion no matter what. Doesn't matter to me. I'm a guy, so it doesn't affect me. I don't care. Well, Mega Man's kind of like that to me, where there's the people that love him, the people that are tired of the people that do love him whining, and then there's people like me. I kind of think he should be in the game because I think he's an iconic Capcom character. But at the same time, it doesn't affect me, so I'm not making a big deal of it. But what I find strange is that there's so many younger people that are crazed about Mega Man that he's not in the game. Whereas people my age I don't hear them as much. I don't. I'm 26. And it just puzzles me a little bit because back when I was really starting to, get into video games on the Super Nintendo and Nintendo NES game system, Mega Man was, a huge, huge, huge hit. A favorite of all of us. Mega Man X is a great, great game. I love it. But I don't hear many people that grew up with Mega Man crying about him. I hear a lot of people that are 5, 6, 7, 8 years younger than me crying for Mega Man. Not to say they didn't have games that they didn't play, but it just puzzles me a little bit that there's so much uproar from a younger generation of fans. So just thought I'd throw that in there, and hopefully you got something out of this video. Again, it's just a theory of mine, and doesn't mean that it's right. Theories aren't foolproof. They are what they are. They're simply theories. So with that said, this has been another rousing update of Marvel vs. Capcom 3, update number 11. So this is Jim McDonough, signing off. Peace out.